writing but then I always have that passion to know what this skill means to everybody else. I think having been there as in the department as well as now as dean, many of us, including all of us who did MD very early, most of our scientific writing starts with our thesis. So we write a thesis, submit a thesis. So many young people, when they want to publish their thesis, they have this, what I would designate as interference due to this previous learning of thesis writing. So things are entirely different. The second point I want to make is that, see, a paper is not actually equal to report of a study. There could be n number of papers. If the study is big, complex, multidimensional, there will be more papers coming out of that. So it's not a report in the sense it's not a study report. A paper is something which the reader would love to read, and thus the editors will be happy to publish. Text is bulky in thesis, whereas you have very limited space to in a paper vis-a-vis the number of words. So why should anybody, Vijay and anybody else, publish your article? Because you should basically, this is very, very important. Unless you have something important, or you should present an argument which is really important, and the presentation makes it appear important. So the one serious problem with many of us is that we have good things to say, but the way we end up saying this, it may not appear as very important. For example, usually this is, to write an article which will change practice is not easy, but then we can always promote thought or debate and disseminate knowledge. And editors definitely want novel things to come up, and then definitely need clearly written articles. This talk, I'm going to try and impress upon everyone here that the writing should engage the reader. The reader should start walking with you. Then it's a journey through a process of a train of thought, which you travel together, take the reader along with you, and things like that. So engage that reader from the very beginning. This is what is the task of introduction. Introduction section, according to all of us, I'm sure there's no doubt about this. It allows the reader to decide whether he or she should read on, or maybe I'll read later, that kind of thing. So introduction is the key, and we should have a good key which will open up the space for intellectual discussion, which will be contained in the sections to follow, that is methods, results, and especially discussion. To me, and I'm sure I'll be very surprised if it comes very naturally to anyone. There may be very, very few people. So getting started is the most difficult thing. It had always been difficult for me. But whoever I had discussed this topic with, they also say that once you decide to start, it's great. Otherwise, you will not get started. Procrastination is a big problem. I would recommend that of late I am doing this. I will write a less than 700 or 800 page word introduction first. Maybe rubbish, may not be good. But then unless you start writing and complete that introduction, you yourself will not know where you are heading. It might completely change, but that first draft gives you, because the point is that you have done the study, so methods cannot be, by and large, the scope for modification is not huge. Results also, results are always rare. Only thing is that how do you present the results? That usually has a format again, whereas introduction is a creative art. So write that and accept the fact that this is going to undergo many revisions. Of late, initially probably I was not doing like this. Now I know that before the first word is written, we should have this in mind. What is it? Whatever we are going to talk today, we should form in the mind, and that arguments which you write down should be formed in the mind. And then once that become clearer and clearer, you write the first draft. Then you keep on, what shall I say, distill or make that much better. Now, see, I'll be going to and fro. If you take the article, the original article, there is a certain content, that is the substance. But style is very important. Style can put people off. They might stop reading. They may not enjoy reading. They might find the reading very uncomfortable. And structure is something which generally you understand and people understand. So something, it's like a house. You have to have a roof, you have to have walls, and then you have to have base. Meaning the basic structure is by and large understandable and easy to comprehend. The task, I'm not talking about the introduction only, but the task here is to inform someone who is at the other end reading your article, and that person should feel that you are accessible, meaning you are near him, near his thoughts. He can follow your thoughts, and thus he like the thoughts to be followed. Because unlike other writing, writing poetry, uh, various other things, or just writing a piece for the newspaper. See, what you are trying to convey to the learned reader is something which is very complex. But you want the reader to understand, comprehend what you have said in the number of words which is allowable for an original article, and then make sense out of this. This sense making is very important. So continue to engage the reader. Essentially, introduction tells people what exactly you are going to say. It gives, it's like a teaser. It gives a, it will not give any content detail, but the introduction will tell that reader where the reader and the person who had written this is heading. This is the thread of conversation is very important in any article. And this part, introduction being very short, uh, maybe 300 to 600 words, that has to be very, what shall I say, evident, understandable, easy for the reader to follow. Because this has to be very crisp and all the ideas should be related to each other. So by the end of the introduction, there's it's something like before you start playing football or whatever, you warm up to take little more complex stuff like methods, results, and then discussion. So this is kind of intellectual warming up, cognitive warming up, I might say, and gives some signal about what to expect and what not to expect. So essentially, the reader will has this question in his mind: why did you, the person who did the study, decide to do this study? What made you think that this is worth doing? I'm sure that thought is something which you would have had before you started the study. So let us know what made you go ahead and do the study. Methods and results will be whatever you did or whatever you found, or discussion means the meaning. Generally, this is also good. Once you have results and methods done, unchangeable, always keep that in mind, and then you choose the right argument. It might, you know why you chose, but then it should get translated into words which convey the meaning which you want to convey. So be very clear about what emerged out of the study as good, important finding, and thus you can really word the things nicely. It's like the first layer is of a sandwich. This is that bread. Introduction and discussion is the first and last layer. This is the general structure. People will read title, abstract, and then go on to read introduction. This is something which I would want to highlight a little bit, because there is this connectivity. This is important to recognize and acknowledge. Keep that in mind. Method is something which you did. And after you carried out the study, you get results. So method section and result section is something like parallel. They are side by side. You decide sample size, then you tell people how many were recruited. Things like that. You make certain assessments, you tell the results of those assessments. So it goes parallel, side by side. Whereas introduction is something which you say that you wanted to do, and then you had some question in the mind which you wanted to address using the methods which you used, and you had the results, and then after you have the results, you are talking about the implication of the results to the reader as well as to the scientific community. So introduction and discussion are interrelated. One leads to the other. This is something which I happen to. So first part is introduction, second is method, third is results, fourth is discussion. You will note that 1 and 4 is interconnected as well as 2 and 3. So this is something which you keep in mind. If, for example, if I take British Journal of Psychiatry and then an original article, I read the abstract, I like it, then I read introduction, then because I got little very curious, I might just want to go and read the discussion before I read methods and results in great detail. If discussion and introduction puts me off, I might think that maybe I'll read this later. I might also designate this as something which carries meaning to my practice or profession. These are few things, but then I think we must recognize this. When we read something, when we read an original article, especially as a postgraduate trainee or as someone who is in a mood to acquire more information, knowledge, etc., you will be more concerned about the content. You are unlikely or less likely to notice the style of presentation of the author. Somehow, since I had the opportunity to work about 18 months before my diploma, those days I used to read current journal, but people used to wonder why. But I was enjoying the presentation more than the content, because content I was not really very knowledgeable. So I think if you want to write and publish, it is very important to see how very good articles are written, the style. Some of these things are really, really good. During the daytime today, I had the opportunity to look at some of the brilliantly written articles in some of the current journals. So, some of these people are brilliant, and you can argue saying that if you cut or delete a word, the meaning will be lost. But most of them are in that nearer to 300. 300 to 600 is the range which I suggest. But many articles are near 300. And of course, we are talking about original article. When it is a case report or case series, the number will fall again. This is important. Just don't confine yourself to reading abstracts. Read the original article, read the introduction carefully, read the discussion part, because these two parts are very difficult to write. The other one has little more structure. Appreciate the style. No, just again to and fro. There are some books which, this is a difficult book, 50 written 50 years back, still read by people. William Strang White and you know, so William Strang and White. These are two authors. It's a dry book, I would say, very short book. But then when you repeatedly read this, you get some good ideas. So I would suggest that the PDF may be available online free. Some of what I am going to discuss now is applicable to all sections of the article, but much more so for introduction and discussion. And this, of course, I gathered from some articles in the BMJ and things like that. We have a handicap. One is that we really do not give too much importance when you write thesis. And when you read thesis written by other people, the same kind of problem will be there. And the other thing, as doctors, we may be exposed to reading orders, office orders. These orders and things like that, the style is not good. Sometimes it's irrational or not at all good style of writing. Then what we read from newspapers also different, and some newspapers stand out. I may not, I may be biased, but then some content which is written in central page of Hindu and things like that on science and philosophy is very well written. Uh, so these are things which you keep in mind. Short sentences. I have shifted to that mode now. Short paragraphs and prefer nouns and verbs than adjectives and adverbs. Active, prefer active voice to passive voice. For example, you can say that we wanted, not in introduction, some part we wanted to do this instead of we decided to do this study. You can do that in passive, more so in what shall I say, results part. So active is always better. Brief. Don't repeat the same idea again. I have that problem. So when I edit, I carefully delete the repeated idea. And don't sound official, indifferent. I think those who work in major hospitals and government sector, we inadvertently are bureaucratic. We do not, so that language also may be like that. I think that is very important. Sometimes you describe your study very carefully, very meticulously examined, or something like that. It may not. So avoid that, all that. Obviously, there is no scope for that in the introduction. And when you go on to say what you want to do. Don't say that, we wanted to do a very good study to find out certain things so that the findings will help the government to implement national policies. And I think these are all rhetoric. If you carefully read sentences, you will realize that a certain sentence will not have high, what shall I say? Some sentences are very loud, some are rather silent. So it's better to be low volume sentences preferred. Another book. This is little more easier to read because Stephen King. I would recommend if you are good and interested in reading, this is not very prescriptive as far as scientific writing is concerned. It's about general writing. I liked the book. Now, proper part of the topic, background. What is known about this and why this study now? What is different? We'll come back to that. Paragraph 1. See, for example, if I'll give you one example. If we were to tell others about a study we did among older people, then we will talk about aging, mental health, and then come to that background. Because you must also say that it's an interesting emerging area of learning, and the context and relevance should be made very obvious. So first paragraph is an appeal from our side to make the topic very evident and uh, give an impression that, or reveal the importance of the topic. Then you focus onto a certain area of your interest and say that the literature says this, but we do not know enough. So thus you have drawn attention to a topic, then came to a specific part of the topic, and then you say, after analyzing relevant high quality research, a few of them, selected ones, relevant ones, then you say that this much we know, but either we are not sure or we are sure about this. Then this much is yet unknown, and it is very important to know that. So, if you are talking about something which is not yet known, but very important to know, then you are talking about a logical next step, a study which will address or gather that information through the study. Whereas there could be a situation, for example, what is the prevalence of dementia? There are few studies from some parts of India, and they have methodological limitations. So you want to do a study to rectify the deficiencies of previous studies, and then since your area did not have a study, then so that could be another reason. But then make that logic explicit. Why did you decide to take up this study? And then this is the most important part. I think first part, second part, now you are heading towards the last paragraph or the last part of introduction, where you tell the reader very clearly that what exactly is this paper looking at? What is it that you wanted to find out? What is the importance of that finding? And how does that finding is going to add value? And whatever is the finding, is that finding having an implication for the way we think, way we practice, or the way we decide future studies? So that is where it should end. Meaning, there has to be a well framed research question, which is often than not presented as text, not as primary objective, secondary objective. No, you make it into text. I'm sure there are results in the tables which you can actually convert it into text of the results section. Similarly, all that can be, nicely converted into sentences. And remember again that that part should appeal or appear as interesting and novel, and should be judged as relevant for the reader to read on. So that's important. And what are the common mistakes? Too long introduction. For example, let me take, if you want to do a study on, say, perinatal depression, you start with saying depression, criteria for depression, major depression, minor depression, then postpartum disorders. See, nobody has patience. If you are doing like that, after three, four sentences, the person will become disinterested because he or she will think that this is too much of a stuff, too much noise. And one big problem is how many references, articles will be referred to in the introduction part. It's a huge mistake which is frequently made because thesis, many a student fill many pages because he reviews and gives details of whatever study was seen, read, and so that's not important. Distill all that information, pick the most relevant, pertinent ones, and that many. One, two, three, or four, five, make maximum. Then avoid, there are people, I had gone through that stage earlier. You take every study and criticize them. But then another mistake is that this can happen, has happened to us. You can miss out on a very elegant, important study. And by the end of the introduction section, the reader should be very clear about the objectives, what this study was trying to find out. And very rarely, but sometimes, I don't know why, compulsion. Don't start saying anything regarding results. We recruited 150 people, we studied 150. No, no, no. All that is for the results section. Nothing, nothing, no results here at all. That's important. I said this again, repetition, but then importance has to be explicit. So these are things which I'll go back to this simple matter of fact, 300 to 500 or 600 words, three parts, calling the attention of the person into, if you are talking about late life depression, bring them over to that. Then talk about that specific area of interest which you are going to address. Then talk about the most important research gap there. Quote few studies. Make a convincing argument about what need to be studied in the light of what is known. Please always, all especially the youngsters, go through the British journals, Lancet or other journals where there is a section sometimes it's sometimes there in most articles, research in context, what is known, the evidence before the study, what the study adds and implications for all the evidence put together. So introduction will only cater to that first question, what is the evidence before the study, and end by saying that giving impression, and by giving an impression what this study is searching for and probably trying to add. There, the introduction will end. So that will make people genuinely curious about the results and methods so that people will read on. This is all what I have to say. Over to before I conclude and take questions, is that okay, organizers? Just two more slides, just to express my gratitude. Just
Yes, sir. Yes,
one
sir.
very important thing, Vijay. I think mentorship in writing, I was blessed because after my MD, Professor Varghese, Abraham Varghese, who was the head of the department and the national coordinator for the schizophrenia study, he was my guide. He made me write the article, asked me to read it aloud, and then approved every section, especially these two sections, introduction and discussion. So I owe to him, and that allowed. Those days, everybody was not very keen in publishing. That allowed. He insisted that this should get published. This was on schizophrenia. I He insisted. Obviously, I was against that. He said he should submit it to British Journal. They promptly rejected it. But we got good reviews by two reviewers. One was slightly problematic comment, slightly insulting, but then he said it's part of the game. So he encouraged me to submit that with minor modifications in the text to Indian Journal, which was published. And then since I was involved in writing and ideating that article, I also had an opportunity to write a letter to the editor, commenting some other articles. So I am happy to take questions. Thank you very much. I'll
Thank
stop.
you, sir. Time flew listening to K. Shaji, sir. It's really a wonderful experience.
Thank you, sir.
So by now we know that wise answer is covered in the introduction section, and sir has stressed being an active voice rather than passive, and also talked about being short and precise. So it reminds me about that famous Nobel Prize winning paper by Watson and Crick on DNA structure, which introduction was barely two sentences only. So definitely there will be lots of queries as asked by the organizers in the chat box to be typed.
Yeah, not anything as of now.
Yes. There is from Kumar. Good evening, sir. Can we reduce convincing addressing to axiom, logical reasoning, conclusion, algorithm? Any other method of reaching the conclusion about introduction? Please explain, sir. Thank you. Can you read it, sir?
Yeah. I think. See, there are various specialties, social sciences, other related health related specialties. Some of them might want to give a glimpse or a tinge of the conclusion at the end of the introduction. But then our journals consistently had not been doing that. So you just end up with the research question and the prospect of answering that question, importance you might want to highlight. But then the logic which comes into the introduction part is the rationale for the study. You are the scientist, you are the researcher. You thought amongst there are so many other topics which can be studied, but you thought you chose maybe because an area you chose, of course, whether it is geriatric psychiatry, child, then you zoom into a focused area. For example, you might want to study dementia. Then, in dementia, you want to study the prevalence of behavioral symptoms of dementia. Then there has to be, then you want to do a study on behavioral symptoms of dementia and its prevalence in community setting. But then that's good. But that's not a convince. You will have to convince the reader that there is a knowledge gap there. We do not, for example, when we started in that area for the first time in India, there were no studies about how prevalent are behavioral and psychological symptoms in dementia in this country, there were no reports. It is important to know. So there was a knowledge gap. We knew that dementia exists, but we did not know. We also had some clue regarding the frequency with which behavioral symptoms are present among people uh, who are seeking help in the hospitals. But then that does not give you a clue, or we do not know. We need to know about the community burden due to behavioral symptoms. So there were no studies, and then there were also few studies from the West. So that was a good argument we could build. Something like that. Any other questions,
Yes,
sir? Yeah.
thank you. There's another one, framework of analyzing the study subject. If we can, if we give glimpse of conclusion in the introduction itself, that makes
Uh,
reader intend to read the full article. That's a comment rather than a question. Your opinion, sir, on that?
maybe you
If we
can see
give,
this is, I would think that I'll not give it away. I will, it is possible. Obviously, there are no hard and fast rules here. I would resist that temptation to give the final conclusion at the end of the introduction. But then you might want to say that if we indeed find this as a major problem, then that has to be followed by something like that, some action or something like that.
so two interesting queries has come up from
Ah,
Arsana and Haris. Arsana said that while selecting references, what all points to keep in mind? After that,
yeah,
we'll take up Haris's question.
that's a very, very good question. Very good question. Because,
Mm.
see, thing is, I must say that when most of us start, we do not do a very systematic review of literature. So, first of all, you should have a list of articles by doing a comprehensive search, and then find out what comes closer to your area which you want to examine, and then find out the merits of the methodology of that article, and seriously think. So, critical appraisal of important articles form the middle part of our introduction. So one of the argument about prevalence of dementia by Shaji Sadanandan et al. Earlier was that there are no good studies. Unless we know the burden due to dementia, we cannot provide services. Is it a major problem or not? We should know. So that kind of an argument can be built. But then for doing that, we looked at all of us, 1066 Dementia Research Group also, we looked at all available studies and went, using something like a microscope, examined the details of the methodology, limitations, and try to see whether that kind of methodology can be adopted in a country like India or South Asia. And we did come across some interesting findings, or we anticipated that, for example, to find out people's age may not be as easy as in the West. Studies where in Western studies, it's much more clearly documented and written down. People can recall their age. Older people in India, many a time you will have to adopt a guesswork, which we standardize. So all that, and good articles means PubMed index for sure. You have to search. You should learn how to do a mesh-based search, and then go back to the cross references of the articles. Feel free to write to the authors. For the last 30 years, I had been writing to people, and they are happy to send their articles. So, uh, it's not a movie trailer. It's yeah, in a way, it might leave you with I think what is different from a movie trailer is that here you are convincing some learned reader that there are things yet unknown and can be addressed in a research design which you are proposing, because your research question is framed in a manner that it is feasible and it can be executed.
Okay, sir, just before that, there was another query. Harish Kulkarni said that when should we write an introduction of a study? Should it be after writing the discussion?
You have a very good question. I think I'm sure. I must say that, see, the first draft is the most difficult part. So I struggle and finish, all of us struggle and finish that draft. I take, I have the temptation or inclination to write methods and results first. Then sometimes I write I keep that emerging good result in the mind and try to write an abstract, a structured abstract. I might want to emphasize that part. There, the first few lines will become the core of my introduction. It's very fascinating. If I would think that if I write, then I cannot write discussion without writing introduction, first draft of introduction. That might change. I think once I finish writing discussion, I might want to make changes in the introduction, because again, I think discussion is when you start discussing your findings after reviewing literature, more recent literature, you will become wiser, and you might also want to include a certain point which you inadvertently had omitted uh, in the introduction, because the scope of the introduction might become, it's not actually, introduction is not please be very clear on this. Introduction is not the record of your thought process before you start studying the study. It is actually what you want to convey to the reader as a meaning of your study findings. So, what it means to you now, what is the rationale of the study as of today, is what should come into introduction. I think it
Not
is
from the
indeed a
protocol.
distillation. Yes.
It's not from the protocol, but
Pardon?
Uh, Very interesting to see that MBBS students also participated in today's presentation. Very
Yeah, I
heartening
don't
to
know
see.
where they
One
are
such
from.
student has a interesting query, sir. Do you have
Uh,
any guidance about works we can do alone, within brackets, considering our own knowledge gap, or even who reach out other than the college professors?
I think this is a very, very huge question. I don't know. I'm tempted to be much more candid. Can I go on, Chairperson, if I say a few sentences about my MBBS? Will that be
Dr.
too
Vijay
much?
has texted that we have time, sir.
Okay, okay. See, I'm not, it's a anticipatory bail. Don't misinterpret that I am trying to sell myself at this age or part of my career. I took up medicine thinking that I can have opportunities to do research. And I must tell this medical student that I was disappointed after the first year, because nobody took me seriously when I started talking about my inclination to do research. But things have changed across the globe. We are now working on a paper uh, which will emphasize and highlight the role for research during the undergraduate training itself. It is not that you should be able to do a very good piece of research during your undergraduate career, you always need mentors. Take the example of the court and the lawyer. You always want to, don't you also think that when you want to practice in the court of law, you want to be under the guidance of someone? And think about surgery. You want to become a cardiothoracic surgeon and you want to do bypass surgery. Would you go and start operating on a person who has coronary artery disease to do a bypass? No. So there are a series of steps. Research is all about skill building. So there are lots of related skills. Writing is one skill, review of literature is one skill, was distillation, as mentioned by Kumar, is one skill. So critical appraisal is another skill. So undergo all that and keep reading. I I want you to be bold. You might I take this. There was this software guy who said, dare to, appear stupid. When you do slightly out of ordinary things like reading a current article from British Medical Journal or Lancet, sitting in the library of an undergraduate training institution, you are only second year or third year or first year. Nobody can prevent you from doing that. And as Dean Research, who is likely to continue for an year or two here, we will be happy to help. My email is dean.research@kuhs. I'll text that. So I think librarian is a good source. You identify other researchers and see what they are doing. Like the junior advocate will see observe the court proceedings, what they are doing, participate as an observer in research projects. Then you will find that out.
Yes, sir. As you have in the very beginning highlighted that writing the introduction is like taking up a journey, and we should get started. And definitely, perfection is not a destination; it's a journey. We learn by commission rather than omission. So it's important to get started. So encouraged by what Dr. Vijay has posted, that Dr. Shyamanta can also share his experiences on introduction and suggest ideas for the audience also, since we have time, with permission from Shaji sir. Few
Yeah, please go
lines.
ahead, go ahead.
Yes. So last week, what happened in Assam? There is a medical college, Fakhruddin Ali Ahmed, where I worked earlier also, Barpeta. There was a research methodology workshop was there. Q Sani sir was also there from Delhi. So my part was on the literature review. So regarding this particular query of how to select references, sir has already given highlights importance. So here, what we know, what sites actually, there lots of database on the net. We all know one definitely Google query for general information. Now, if we want to have some specific, which are the authentic sites? So there is a non-profit organization held on net, HON in short. They used to give accreditation to reliable websites. Say, for example, we want some general information, but by a professional or by a researcher. So we can go for the HON accredited sites. Now, as sir, you already said, PubMed, definitely a very authentic site. Likewise, Scopus, Embase. And if you want to have systematic or meta-analysis articles, as we know in the pyramid of evidence, case study, case series, randomized controlled, and systematic meta-analysis, then Cochrane database is the best for that. And we must be knowing for the MBBS students or new ones that there's a Boolean query how to do the search with 3 words, and or not. Say, for example, we want to study about depression and stress. Now, how to search it? If we type and, so what will come up? Words which are associated with depression and stress. Now, if we give or, then the more studies will come. Not only the associated with depression and stress, but also depression and stress independently. And if we write depression, not stress, then all the stress related studies will be excluded, and also those which are associated with depression. So that is the way to do the search engine.
Thank you.
So there are no more queries, sir. Most probably
Sir,
we are
just
to
one
the end.
second. I think
Yeah.
just to encourage all of us,
Mm.
just to make us realize that MBBS students can actually be mentored. Hello? Sir, can I say that?
Yes, sir.
Yes, sir, you are audible, sir.
I
Yes, sir.
recall that I think it was in 1990 or 89. There were this, I'm not trying to praise a certain institution. There were two medical students from All India Institute of Medical Sciences, Delhi, who came for a 2 week, uh, exposure, or they were allowed to do that. And I was taking rounds in the ward. So they came and met me because the Professor Kurula asked me to handle them. So they came, and then I said, today's journal club, maybe it may not be very useful or relevant for you. So if you want to join, you can join, but otherwise I'll engage you. So one among them, the two, said that we will definitely want to sit through the journal club. And after an hour of journal club, the best queries came from them because their community medicine posting time, they are given an exercise in critical appraisal. I think that exposure is there in some colleges, and I'm sure the short-term studentship, STS, all aims now, and major institutions, JIPMER included, they're all supporting students to prepare. And lastly, that is actually breaking news. We are into a second year program, something very similar to STS of ICMR, short-term studentship. Initially, last year, we had the opportunity to select more than 300 people. But this year, we are selecting more than 600 people. All undergraduates, not MBBS only. It's Ayurveda, pharmacy, nursing, with medicine, dental, and nursing and pharmacy being the good response. So I think it's for all. Thank you, Chairperson, for allowing me this
Thank
time.
you, sir. Thank you. And now that is what exactly Dr. Rabindra has in the chat box about ICMR STC STS grant.
Yes, sir.
So over to you, organizers.
Right. Thank you, Shaji sir, for giving us such practical points and important do's and don'ts for writing the introduction series. Like sir very rightly said that the introduction section actually determines if somebody wants to read our article further or not. So it becomes highly important. Thank you, Shyamanta sir, for moderating the session so seamlessly and giving us points on reference writing and improving our article writing from the editor point of view. Also, our participants for making today's session so active, and all the young learners for your enthusiastic questions. I now request Dr. Narayan Matalik, Honorary Secretary IPS KC, for a few words for today's session.
Yes, good evening, everyone. At the outset, I would like to thank you, Dr. Shaji sir, for that lucid and insightful session on how to write the introduction section in a paper. Your talk beautifully highlighted the art of building scientific curiosity and connecting literature and leading readers seamlessly toward the research question. Thank you very much for making this session impactful, something where every aspiring author needs to master. And I don't know whether Dr. Shyamanta Das remembers me because we met in 2016 in Guwahati when they were organizing the conference of under IPS. And I would also like to thank our moderator Shyamanta Das for guiding the discussion so effectively and for his continued mentorship in strengthening scientific writing skills among our fraternity. And on behalf of IPSKC, and I extend heartfelt thanks to all the participants for your active engagement this evening. We look forward to seeing you again in session 3, where we will continue our journey toward becoming more confident and competent contributors to psychiatric literature. Thank you and good evening, one and all.
Thank you, sir. I now request our honorary editor for Journal of Psychiatry Spectrum, Dr. Vijay, to share your thoughts in today's session.
it couldn't have been better coming from, especially coming from a senior person, experienced. So it's not easy to write an introduction. So I think he has collected his wisdom, he's collected all his experiences put together in the form of presentation. I'm sure, you got some idea of when you're sitting in front of, you at least you, and also you inspired us. That's what I felt. Um, we're not taking, I felt most of us were not taking the introduction part seriously. Even when we're asked to review an article, I would look for methodology first and then come towards the introduction and look for what they're looking. I was like cutting short, cutting corners. So I think this is inspirational, I felt. They're very useful. I am sure it couldn't have been any better. I felt Dr. Shyamanta was brilliant. Please do make yourself available for us. We'll have a lot of such programs. So back
Sure,
to
sure.
Dr. Purva. And just mention that next week it'll be Dr. Akshay Bipeta on results and table section. He's a editor-in-chief of the Indian Journal of Psychological Medicine, the PubMed indexed, the second PubMed indexed journal of India. He'll be taking us through results and table section. So please do join, everyone. So back to Apurva.
Yes. Thank you, sir. I now request Dr. Anil, President IPS Karnataka chapter, to speak a few words for today's session.
Hi, all. I think most of the things have been already discussed. It was an excellent session. I too got several tips during the session. One thing I would like to say is that introduction is like your handshake, the handshake of your article, and so make it firm. It also said that you never get a second chance to make a first impression. So I thoroughly enjoyed the session, and I think there were 69 participants today at one point in time. And thank you all for the active participation. Have a nice day.
Ravindra sir, would you want to say something else?
Yeah, I think I would like to thank. Also, it's interesting to note the zeal and passion of Shaji sir. Whenever he starts teaching, he goes into that mode where like we all will get engrossed in that. So this is not the first time that we are hearing Shaji sir, like in all the conference and other places also. He's so passionate about teaching. So we're happy to see you, sir, and happy to listen to you again and again, sir. Also, Shyamanta sir is a hidden gem. Not many are aware of his contributions and the efforts and dedication that he puts in the journal specifically. Okay, so working in a already well-established journal is a different thing, but bringing up the journal from the basic level to the level that he has brought those is something very big achievement. Just like what Vijay sir has took up and took our journal to Scopus in the span of 2.5 years. Thank you, Shyamanta sir and Shaji sir, and special thanks to all the participants. And as usual, our IPS KC President and Secretary sir for providing us this platform for our journal to use it for the capacity building of the scientific community or scientific herd in the state and in the country. Thank you, everyone. Back to you, Aparo.
So, any final words by anyone? Okay.
So it was a nice, my coming to the Psychiatry Journal Club was a nice introduction, and I will definitely will be a part in this journey. Thank you for making me a part of your journey.
Thank you, sir.
So thank you so much, Dr. Shaji, Dr. Shyamanta, and all the attendees for today's session. I think we can now close today's session. We shall meet next week on the topic of results and table section, as told by Vijay sir by Dr. Rajshekhar Bipeta. Thank you so much, everyone. Good night.
Good night. Thank you. Good night.